All right, let's dive into something that feels, well, less like a distant future and more like the transformation happening right now, like at incredible speed.
Hmm.
We're talking about the impact of AI on the American job market. And it's a shift so significant, people are actually comparing it to the Industrial Revolution.
It's a huge comparison, and it feels apt given the scale we're seeing.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
here's the kicker. We're not looking at, 2050 or something. We're talking major tangible change by 2030. That's just,
Yeah,
what, 6 years away?
barely. And the data backing this up is pretty compelling. It comes directly from the sources you brought. For this deep dive, we've looked at research from McKinsey, Goldman Sachs, the World Economic Forum, places like that.
Big names.
Right. And they paint a picture of a rapid, really fundamental restructuring of work as we know it.
Absolutely. So our mission today is to unpack what these sources are telling us together. We want to figure out which jobs, specifically in the U.S., are flagged as most vulnerable to AI automation by 2030. We'll look at some real-world examples, the key stats, and crucially, pull out the practical, actionable ways American workers and students, too, can prepare and, stay relevant in this accelerating landscape.
It is a lot to absorb, definitely. But I think understanding the sheer scale is the first critical step.
Okay, let's start there then. Let's unpack this scale. The numbers alone, just looking through these sources, are kind of staggering. McKinsey, for instance, they're projecting around 12 million occupational transitions just in the U.S. by 2030.
12 million.
Think about that, 12 million people
Yeah.
potentially needing to shift into different roles or maybe entirely new lines of work.
And it's fascinating, too, when you place that U.S. number in the global context these sources provide. Goldman Sachs estimates AI could impact something like 300 million jobs worldwide.
300 million. Wow.
Yeah. And the World Economic Forum, the WEF, they project that globally, 22% of all jobs will face significant change by 2030. Now, they do forecast displacing about 92 million existing roles,
Right.
but they also anticipate the creation of 170 million new ones.
Ah, okay. So it's not just like job losses across the board. It's more of a massive reshuffle and new stuff emerging too.
Precisely. It's dynamic, a huge shift. But the pace, this is what really leaps out from the data. We're not talking gradual evolution over decades here.
Right.
Apparently, 86% of businesses expect to see significant transformation from AI and related tech by 2030. And, we're seeing real impacts today. Your sources mentioned that, what was it, 23.5% of U.S. companies have already used tools like ChatGPT to replace some tasks.
Feel free to doing it.
Yeah, and we saw about 3,900 U.S. job losses directly attributed to AI in just 1 month back in May 2023.
Those aren't projections, that's history now. That really puts a fine point on the timeline, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And to connect this directly to you, the listener McKinsey suggests that up to 30% of tasks in the average U.S. job could be automated by 2030.
30% of the average job.
Right. So what that tells us is this isn't just about a few specific industries or roles. It means almost every worker will likely see some part of their job touched by AI. And the scale of career shows needed. It's underlined by that projection that about 11.8 million U.S. workers will need to move into totally new occupations by the end of the decade, just due to changing demand.
That average job stat really hits home. It's not something happening to other people. It's tasks within most of our roles.
Yeah.
Okay, so acknowledging that massive scale, where specifically does the data show the sharpest impact coming? Which job categories are most vulnerable according to these sources? This is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, based on digging into your materials, a few categories clearly stand out as high risk for automation by 2030. Administrative and clerical support, consistently near the top of list.
Why admin specifically? What makes those roles so exposed?
Well, they're often built around tasks that are highly repetitive, rule-based, predictable. Think about scheduling, managing emails, organizing documents, data entry, coordinating basic communications.
Right. Stuff AI is getting good at.
Exactly. The kinds of functions AI systems are becoming incredibly efficient and accurate at automating. McKinsey flags admin support as one of the categories facing the biggest disruption. And the projected U.S. job declines by 2030 are quite stark. Clerical clerks, administrative assistants, data entry specialists, each group is expected to shrink by over 600,000 jobs.
Dropping by 600,000 each. That's huge for those foundational roles. What does that mean for things like, say, entry-level jobs that often start in admin?
It likely means those traditional entry points into professional careers, the ones that relied heavily on those routine admin tasks, are becoming Well, more challenging to find. Automation isn't just doing data input anymore, it's starting to manage entire workflows, needing fewer human coordinators.
Hmm.
So it really highlights a critical need for workers in those areas to adapt, to build new skills.
Okay, what other job types face that kind of vulnerability?
Customer service and sales roles are also under significant pressure. The rise of sophisticated chatbots, virtual assistants. It means routine customer inquiries and support tasks are increasingly handled by AI.
I've definitely noticed that myself when contacting companies. Sometimes it's hard to get a person.
Exactly. The human interaction gets focused on the complex stuff, the edge cases, or issues needing real empathy, which, reduces the overall headcount needed for just handling routine queries. The WEF specifically flags customer service reps as highly impacted.
Makes sense?
And JP Morgan's research, it explicitly notes their vulnerability to generative AI replacement. Similarly, in retail, sales positions are hit by AI recommendation engines, automated checkouts, and just the big shift to e-commerce overall.
Yeah, self-checkout is everywhere.
It is. And the Bureau of Labor Statistics projections you provided show cashiers and sales associates are forecast for major declines, each dropping by roughly 600,000 jobs in the U.S. by 2030. It lines up perfectly with what we see: more self-checkout, more AI-driven online shopping, trying to minimize human sales support.
So routine tasks, whether they're data-focused or customer-facing, clearly vulnerable. What about jobs involving physical labor, like manufacturing?
Manufacturing and production workers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they face some of the most severe disruption, according to these sources. Some studies suggest up to 59% of manufacturing activities could be automated by 2030.
Wow, nearly 60%.
Yeah, it's driven by robots and AI systems that can just perform repetitive physical tasks with greater precision, speed, and frankly, lower long-term costs than humans. So positions like machine operators, assembly line workers, welders, they're particularly at risk.
We've heard about manufacturing automation for years, though. Are these sources saying the pace is really picking up now?
It seems so. The tech has gotten much better, more capable, and more affordable. Oxford Economics estimates 20 million global manufacturing jobs could be lost to robots by 2030.
20 million globally.
And there's U.S.-specific research from MIT and BU projecting 2 million U.S. manufacturing workers could be replaced by automated tools by just 2025. That's next year.
That's incredibly soon.
It is. And the sources also make a point about the community impact, especially in regions historically reliant on manufacturing for stable, decent-paying jobs, often for workers without college degrees. It's not just economic, it's social, too.
Right. Okay, so administrative, customer service, sales, manufacturing,
Yeah.
those seem to be the big areas facing direct, significant pressure by 2030 based on this data. But how does AI impact different industries more broadly? Is it creating opportunities alongside the challenge?
Oh, definitely. AI's impact varies quite a bit sector by sector. Take financial services and accounting. There's clear risk in routine tasks, data processing, account verification, basic underwriting.
Okay.
Your sources indicate about 60% of finance and insurance jobs have at least 30% of their tasks that could potentially be automated. Think bank tellers, accounting clerks.
But finance also involves a lot of complex analysis and judgment, right? Is that at risk too?
That's where the nuance comes in. Yes, AI is increasingly used for things like credit risk assessment, fraud detection, even some quantitative analysis. But the sources are pretty clear. The higher-end financial analysis, the stuff requiring strategic judgment, complex client relationships, navigating ambiguity, that largely remains secure.
I see.
The impact is felt most in those foundational, repetitive tasks, not necessarily the strategic advisory roles.
Okay. How about retail and food service again? Looking at the whole industry picture.
Well, in retail, beyond the direct losses for cashiers and sales staff, the transformation driven by e-commerce and automation actually creates growth elsewhere. Store-based roles might decline, but there's more demand for people in warehouses, logistics, online customer support.
Ah, the back end of online shopping.
Exactly. And in food service, fast food places are prime candidates for automation and ordering, maybe even some prep. But full-service dining, that still relies heavily on human interaction, service quality, adaptability. Those roles seem less vulnerable for now. Though, again, the rise of delivery shifts labor towards kitchen and packaging for online orders.
It sounds like human interaction, adaptability.
Mm-hmm.
Those are key differentiators. What about healthcare? That's often talked about as a major growth area, despite AI.
Healthcare is a really fascinating, complex case in these sources. Yes, there are specific tasks at risk. Automated transcription is replacing medical transcriptionists. AI can help analyze medical images or health records routinely, which could impact some roles there.
But the overall job outlook for healthcare is still strong.
Crucially, yes. The WEF actually identifies caregiving and education as the sectors with the highest projected job growth globally by 2030, and that trend holds up in other sources for the US too.
Why is that?
The fundamental reason seems to be that core healthcare functions demand things AI just can't replicate. Human empathy, complex ethical decisions, nuanced patient communication, direct physical care. So roles like nurses, mental health professionals, physical therapists, direct patient aides, they're projected for significant expansion.
Interesting.
And what's more, the growth will also include roles that complement AI. Healthcare pros who can interpret sophisticated AI diagnostics, integrate AI insights into treatment plans, manage the tech itself.
So it's not just that care jobs are safe, it's that they're where a lot of the new human-centric jobs will actually be created.
Exactly. It really highlights the increasing value of those human skills.
Okay, so beyond healthcare, which other sectors look poised for broad growth, according to the data?
Well, unsurprisingly, STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, math are seeing unprecedented demand directly fueled by the rise of AI itself. McKinsey and the WEF both emphasize the high and growing demand for skills in AI development, big data analysis, machine learning, cybersecurity.
Right, building and managing the tech itself.
Right?
Makes sense.
Totally. Roles like data scientists, ML engineers, cybersecurity pros are red hot. But it's also spawning entirely new specialties that weren't really common just a few years back. Think AI ethics specialists, people focusing on AI governance and regulation, algorithmic auditors making sure AI systems are fair.
Wow, totally new job titles.
Yeah. And of course, software engineers who can actually integrate AI capabilities into existing systems are becoming incredibly valuable too.
What about jobs that feel more, I don't know, inherently creative or strategic? Are those generally safe?
Generally, yes. Those roles show high resilience in the sources because they lean so heavily on complex human judgment, creativity, strategic thinking, interpersonal skills, things AI currently struggles with. The WEF really emphasizes skills like creative thinking, resilience, flexibility, complex problem solving as critical for the future. But there's an important nuance here that your sources point out. Even within creative fields, tasks that are more routine or predictable can be automated. They specifically mention graphic designers facing potential decline because AI can now generate a lot of visual content.
So it's less about the job title, like designer, and more about the nature of the specific tasks involved.
Precisely. If the creative work is highly original, conceptual, needs deep human understanding or emotional connection, it's much harder to automate. If it's more about production, templates, maybe iterating existing designs, AI is getting quite capable there.
Got it.
And for strategic roles management, high-level decisions, negotiation, leadership, human abilities like understanding motivations, building consensus, navigating ambiguity, they remain pretty irreplaceable for now. For people in both creative and strategic roles, the key seems to be learning to leverage AI tools, use them to boost productivity and creativity, not see them purely as a replacement. It definitely demands continuous adaptation.
Okay, this is a lot of change coming fast. So zooming out, what does this all mean for you, the listener? Based purely on these sources, what are the most practical steps American professionals and students can take right now to get ready for this future by 2030?
The sources offer some pretty clear strategies, actually, for proactive preparation. First and foremost, focus on developing skills that complement AI rather than trying to compete head-on where AI excels.
Complement, not compete.
Okay, the WEF is really clear on this. The future workforce needs a blend. You need technological literacy, understanding how to use AI and data tools effectively, and those deeply human skills.
So it's not just about learning to code, but also things like communication, critical thinking, that sort of stuff.
Exactly. They really emphasize the growing importance of creative thinking, critical thinking, complex problem solving, resilience, flexibility, emotional intelligence, strong communication. These are abilities AI finds difficult, and they're essential for the roles projected to grow, especially in care, education, strategy. And, crucially, learning how to use AI tools effectively as productivity enhancers, seeing AI as a co-pilot, maybe, not just some external threat.
What role does formal education and ongoing training play in all this?
Continuous learning looks pretty much non-negotiable. The sources point to a significant and growing skills gap. They note almost 40% of core workplace skills are changing rapidly, and something like 63% of employers already say they struggle to find people with the right skills.
63%.
Yeah. So education needs to prioritize programs that really combine technical competence, maybe in data analysis, digital tools, specific AI applications relevant to a field with developing those critical thinking and interpersonal skills we just talked about.
And this isn't just about traditional college degrees, right?
Absolutely not. Think professional certifications, online learning platforms focusing on practical, applicable skills, industry-specific training that teaches you how to work alongside AI systems, how to interpret AI outputs, and importantly, how to apply that uniquely human judgment and context. Cross-disciplinary learning, like combining tech understanding with deep knowledge of healthcare or finance, is also flagged as increasingly valuable.
Okay, and what if someone listening right now is in a job category that the sources clearly identify as high risk? What steps can they take?
That's a tough position. Given McKinsey's projection that 14% of the U.S. workforce, that's the 11.8 million people we mentioned, might need to actually change careers by 2030, proactive transition planning is essential. Don't wait for the role to disappear.
Be proactive.
Exactly. The sources suggest exploring adjacent roles, roles that leverage your existing skills but shift you towards more human-centric or AI-resistant functions, maybe within the same industry or a related one.
Like moving from routine data entry to maybe a data analysis role that involves interpreting and communicating the findings.
Precisely that kind of move. Or maybe from routine admin tasks to project coordination or client relationship management, roles needing complex communication and negotiation skills, networking, seeking mentorship, building relationships in growing fields also highlighted as crucial.
Right.
And building a portfolio of diverse, transferable skills rather than being hyper-specialized in one vulnerable area just offers more flexibility. The sources even hint at adopting a more entrepreneurial mindset, looking for ways to create new value by augmenting work with AI, not just fitting into old job descriptions.
This transformation feels immense, but hearing it broken down by these sources, it also feels like something individuals can actually prepare for. It's not hopeless.
It truly does feel that way.
Yeah.
This deep dive shows us, yeah, the AI revolution is bringing massive change by 2030. It's going to significantly impact jobs, especially in admin, customer service, manufacturing, routine tech areas. But it's just as clear that it's creating substantial opportunities too, especially in healthcare, STEM, education, and roles needing complex human judgment, creativity, empathy.
And the core message threading through all these different reports seems to be being proactive about preparation is absolutely critical, and the window for action, it's closing fast.
That really is the fundamental takeaway. The ultimate outcome seems to depend less on the AI tech itself and much more on how effectively we as a society, as individuals, educators, companies, government, prepare the workforce. The sources repeatedly emphasize that human creativity, empathy, strategic thinking, they aren't becoming obsolete. They're becoming our most valuable economic assets in this new era.
That's a powerful way to frame it. It's not about fearing the machines, but about recognizing and doubling down on what makes us uniquely human in the face of this change.
Exactly. And for those who really embrace that reality now, who focus on developing both AI literacy and those uniquely human capabilities, they seem best positioned not just to navigate the change, but to actually thrive and benefit from the new opportunities, including, the potential for millions of net new jobs globally by 2030 that the WEF mentioned. It leaves us with a question, really. How are you valuing and sharpening your most human skills for the future?